The wedding celebration continued long into the night. Music echoed through the compound as guests danced beneath strings of golden lights. Villagers who had once laughed at Chitty stood silently in corners, watching the impossible reality before them. The man they had mocked as a beggar was now standing beside Kaima, not as a poor man who had been rescued, but as the mysterious chairman of Dream Chasing Group. Even after the vows had been exchanged, many people still struggled to believe what they had witnessed. Kaima sat quietly beside her husband, stealing glances at him every few seconds. Only a week earlier, she had offered him her entire savings because she believed he had nothing. Now she had discovered that he possessed more wealth than anyone she had ever imagined. Yet strangely, none of that mattered to her. What mattered was the same thing that had mattered when she first brought him home from the street. His kindness. Chitty noticed her staring. "Why are you looking at me like that?" he asked with a smile. Kaima shook her head. "I'm trying to understand how one person can hide such a huge secret." Chitty laughed softly. "I know. You really made me believe you were a beggar. I was testing people." Kaima folded her arms. "And what if I had rejected you too?" Chitty became quiet. "Then I would have accepted it and moved on." Kaima looked into his eyes. "No." "What do you mean?" "You wouldn't have accepted it." Chitty smiled. "How are you so sure?" "Because even before I knew who you were, I could see that you weren't looking for money. You were looking for someone who would stay." For a moment, Chitty said nothing. Then he gently took her hand. "You stayed." Kaima squeezed his fingers. "I stayed." Around them, laughter filled the night. Business leaders who controlled billion-dollar companies sat beside villagers, wearing simple clothes. Nobody could tell who was rich and who was poor anymore. For the first time, everyone was simply celebrating love. Across the compound, Kaima's mother sat alone. She watched the celebration, but she could not enjoy it. Guilt sat heavily in her chest. She remembered every cruel word she had spoken. She remembered calling Chitty a beggar. She remembered smashing Kaima's phone. She remembered hiring men to block him from entering. And yet, despite everything, Chitty had saved someone's life on his way to the wedding. Even after all the humiliation, he had still chosen kindness. Tears slowly rolled down her face. Kaima's elder sister sat beside her. "Mommy, are you crying? What kind of mother treats her daughter like that? You thought you were protecting her." "No." She shook her head. "I was protecting my pride." Her daughter looked away. "We all made mistakes." Kaima's mother sighed deeply. "I almost destroyed her happiness because of what people would say." The music became louder. On the dance floor, Chitty lifted Kaima into his arms, making everyone cheer. Kaima laughed. "Put me down." "No." "Everybody is watching. Let them watch." The guests burst into applause. At the edge of the compound, Agochi stood silently. She had hidden behind the crowd since the ceremony began. Nobody had invited her, yet she couldn't stay away. She watched Kaima smile. She watched Chitty laugh. Every memory came rushing back. She remembered the day she had walked away from him. She remembered calling him a failure. At that time, she had convinced herself that she was making the right decision. Now she wasn't so sure anymore. A friend walked up beside her. "Are you okay?" Agochi forced a smile. "I'm fine." "No, you're not." She looked toward Chitty again. "I lost him." Her friend sighed. "You left him." Agochi lowered her head. "I thought money was everything. And now? Now I don't know." Her friend crossed her arms. "You're not crying because he's rich." "Then why am I crying?" "Because you finally realized that someone loved you, and you threw that love away." Agochi said nothing. Deep down, she knew it was true. Money had blinded her. And now it was too late. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, chaos had erupted inside Chief Bedella's mansion. Police officers moved through the enormous house carrying boxes filled with documents. The once proud businessman sat in silence. His son, Aim-cha, paced back and forth. "This is all Chitty's fault." His father shook his head. "No." "What do you mean no?" "We caused this ourselves." Aim-cha stopped. "What are you saying?" Chief Badella looked at his son with disappointment. Did you really think money gave you the right to force a woman to marry you? Aim Cha looked away. I loved her.
No.
His father shook his head. You wanted to possess her. The room fell silent. Outside, cameras flashed. Reporters crowded around the gates. For the first time in years, Chief Badella understood exactly how quickly power could disappear. Back at Dream Chasing Group headquarters, preparations were already underway for Chairman Chitty's kindness project. Inside a conference room, executives sat around a massive table. Files covered every surface. One of the directors stood. Chairman instructed that all 100 beneficiaries receive life-changing support. Another executive nodded. The first 20 files are ready. Good. The director opened one folder. A widowed mother who sells vegetables. Approve a new shop and a house. The next file opened. A university student who dropped out because of fees. Pay the tuition in full. Another file. An old man with medical bills. Cover every expense. The room remained silent as they continued. Nobody questioned the chairman's orders. They all knew why he was doing this. Kindness deserved to be rewarded. The following morning, Kaima woke up slowly. For a few moments, she forgot everything that had happened. Then she saw Chitty sitting near the window. He was reading documents. You're already working? Chitty smiled. Good morning, wife. Kaima laughed. I still can't believe I'm somebody's wife. Chitty stood and walked over. How do you feel? Confused. Only confused? And happy. He kissed her forehead. Good answer. Kaima stared at him. Do you ever regret testing people like that? Chitty thought for a moment. Sometimes. Why? Because I saw ugly things. What kind of things? He looked out the window. I saw people insult strangers. I saw people laugh at suffering. I saw people ignore pain.
Kaima squeezed his hand.
But you also found kindness. Chitty smiled. Yes. He looked directly into her eyes. I found you. Kaima blushed. Before she could answer, there was a knock at the door. Come in. An assistant entered. Chairman, the vehicles are ready. Kaima frowned. Vehicles for what? Chitty smiled mysteriously. We're going somewhere. Where? It's a surprise. 30 minutes later, a convoy of luxury cars drove out of the city. Kaima sat beside Chitty, staring through the window. Can you at least give me a clue?
No.
One clue. Fine. He smiled. It involves your mother. Kaima's eyes widened. My mother? Yes. An hour later, the convoy stopped. Kaima stepped out and froze. Before her stood a beautiful house. It was larger than anything she had ever imagined. What is this? Chitty handed her a set of keys. The house is yours. Kaima stared at him in shock. What? Actually, not just yours. She looked confused. What do you mean? Your mother spent years raising you and your sister. She made mistakes, but she's still your mother. Kaima's eyes filled with tears. You bought this for us? Chitty nodded. I promised that marrying me would never bring shame to your family. Kaima covered her mouth. Chitty. He smiled. There's something else. Another car door opened. Kaima's mother stepped out. She stared at the house in disbelief. What is all this? Chitty walked toward her. A gift. The woman stepped backward. No, I don't deserve this. Chitty shook his head. This isn't about deserving. She burst into tears. After everything I did to you? You were afraid for your daughter. I insulted you. You were wrong. I tried to stop your wedding. I know. She fell to her knees. Please forgive me. Chitty quickly helped her up. You don't need to kneel. I'm ashamed. Chitty smiled softly. Then let the shame teach you something. She cried harder. I judged you because I thought you were poor. And now you know better. She nodded. Yes. Kaima hugged her mother tightly. The three of them stood together in silence. For the first time in many years, the family felt whole. That same afternoon, something extraordinary began happening across the city. A widow received documents for a new house. A struggling student received a scholarship. A mechanic received funds to open his own workshop. One by one, the 100 people who had shown kindness to a stranger discovered that kindness had returned to them. News spread rapidly. People could hardly believe it. The beggar they had ignored was the richest man in the country. The people who had helped him were becoming successful overnight. Every television station talked about it. Every newspaper printed the story. But Chitty himself remained strangely calm. Late that evening, Kaima found him standing alone on a balcony. "What are you thinking about?" Chitty smiled. "About how strange life is." Kaima stood beside him. "Tell me." He looked toward the city lights. "A month ago, people walked past me without seeing me. And now everyone sees me." Kaima leaned against him. "Which one do you prefer?" Chitty thought carefully. "Neither." She looked surprised. "Neither? I prefer being seen by the people who matter." Kaima smiled. "And, do you see me?" He wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "I saw you long before anyone else did." Below them, the city sparkled in the darkness. For the first time since the test had begun, Chitty finally felt at peace. The world had shown him its cruelty, but it had also shown him its kindness. And standing beside him was proof that goodness still existed. 3 days after the wedding, the entire country was still talking about only one thing. Television stations replayed the story every hour. Newspapers carried giant headlines. Social media exploded with videos. The beggar who turned out to be the chairman. The woman who loved a poor man without knowing he was rich. The kindness experiment that changed 100 lives. Everywhere people went, they heard the same names. Chitty's Amati. Kaima Maduka. Dream Chasing Group. In markets, in offices, in buses, and even in schools, people debated the story. Some praised Kaima's loyalty. Others claimed they would have done the same thing. But deep inside, many people knew the truth. Most of them would have walked away, just as Agochi had done. Agochi sat alone in her apartment, staring at her phone. Video after video played on the screen. She watched Kaima smiling beside Chitty. She watched reporters describing Chitty as one of the richest men in the world. She watched clips of herself laughing at him when she believed he was a beggar. Every comment section was full of criticism. She left him when he was poor. She chose money and lost everything. Kaima deserved him more. Agochi dropped the phone onto the bed. Tears filled her eyes. For the first time in years, she wasn't thinking about money. She was thinking about the person she had hurt. Her best friend, Ada, walked into the room. "You're still watching those videos?" Agochi wiped her face. "I'm trying to understand where I went wrong." Ada sighed. "You already know." "I thought I was making the right decision. You abandoned him when his business failed. I was scared." Ada sat beside her. "We're all scared sometimes. The difference is that some people stay." Agochi lowered her head. "I loved him." Ada looked at her quietly. "Did you love him? Or did you love the life he could give you?" The question hit Agochi like a stone. She wanted to argue. She wanted to defend herself. But she couldn't, because deep inside, she wasn't sure anymore. Meanwhile, on the top floor of Dream Chasing Group headquarters, Kaima stood outside the boardroom. She stared at the large glass doors. Her heart raced. Only a week earlier, she had been living a normal life. Now she was the vice president of one of the largest companies in the world. She adjusted her jacket nervously. "You look terrified." Kaima turned. Chitty stood behind her, smiling. "I am terrified. You'll be fine. I don't know anything about being vice president." Chitty laughed. "Good." Kaima frowned. "Good. People who think they know everything are dangerous." She shook her head. "You're making jokes because you're not the one walking into that room." "Oh, I am." He opened the door. Inside, 20 executives immediately stood. "Good morning, Chairman." Kaima froze. The room was filled with people old enough to be her parents. Men and women who had spent decades building billion-dollar businesses. And now they were looking at her. Chitty sat down. "Please sit." Everyone obeyed. One of the directors smiled politely. "Congratulations, Madam Vice President." Kaima forced a smile. "Thank you." But not everyone looked pleased. At the far end of the table, an older executive crossed his arms. His name was Mr. Okafor. He had worked at Dream Chasing Group for nearly 20 years. And he clearly didn't approve of Chitty's decision. Chitty noticed his expression. Mr. Okafor, is something bothering you? The room immediately became silent. The man cleared his throat. No, Chairman. Good. But Chitty wasn't convinced. He had spent years studying people. He knew doubt when he saw it. After the meeting ended, Kaima walked into Chitty's office. I think they hate me. Chitty laughed. They don't hate you. Then why were they looking at me like that? Because they're wondering if you deserve your position. Kaima sat down heavily. And do I? Oh, Chitty smiled. I didn't choose you because you're perfect. Then why? Because you have something money can't buy. Kaima looked at him. What? Character. She shook her head. Character won't help me run a company. It will help you make the right decisions. At that moment, Chitty's assistant entered. Chairman, there's someone downstairs asking to see you. Who? The assistant hesitated. Agochi. Kaima looked up immediately. For a moment, nobody spoke. Chitty remained calm. What does she want? She says she only wants 5 minutes. Kaima looked away. You can see her if you want. Chitty studied his wife's face. Are you sure? She nodded. Your past is your past. Chitty stood up. Bring her in. 10 minutes later, Agochi walked into the office. The moment she saw Chitty sitting behind the enormous desk, reality hit her. This wasn't the struggling businessman she had abandoned. This was the chairman of Dream Chasing Group. For several seconds, she couldn't speak. Chitty broke the silence. Sit down. She sat carefully. I didn't come here to cause trouble. I know. Agochi looked around the office. It's true then. Yes. She laughed bitterly. All this time, Chitty remained silent. Tears filled her eyes. I came to apologize. There is nothing to apologize for. Don't say that. You made your choice. I was wrong. Chitty leaned back. Maybe. I hurt you. You did. Agochi looked down. I thought money was everything. And now. She smiled sadly. Now I understand that loyalty matters more. For the first time, Chitty looked directly into her eyes. Do you regret leaving because I became rich? Agochi shook her head immediately.
No.
Then why? Because I abandoned someone who loved me. The office became quiet. After a long silence, Chitty spoke softly. We were both younger then. I don't expect forgiveness. You already have it. Agochi stared at him. You forgave me? A long time ago. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I don't deserve that. Maybe not. Then why? Because carrying hatred is exhausting. She lowered her head. I hope Kaima knows how lucky she is. Chitty smiled. She does. Agochi stood. I won't disturb you again. As she reached the door, Chitty stopped her. Agochi. She turned. I truly hope you find happiness. For a moment, she couldn't answer. Then she nodded. Thank you. And she walked away. Outside the building, Agochi sat in her car and cried. Not because she had lost a billionaire, but because she had lost a man who had forgiven her. For the first time, she understood the difference. Back upstairs, Kaima entered Chitty's office. How did it go? Chitty smiled. She apologized. And I forgave her. Kaima sat beside him. Do you still love her? Chitty didn't answer immediately. Finally, he shook his head. No. What changed? He looked at his wife. She left when life became difficult. Kaima smiled. And I stayed. You stayed. She leaned against him. Good answer. Both of them laughed. But at that same moment, trouble was already growing inside Dream Chasing Group. Mr. Okafor stood in the parking lot, speaking quietly on the phone. This girl became vice president overnight. A voice answered from the other side. What are you going to do? Mr. Okafor glanced toward the building. We'll wait. Wait for what? For her to fail. He ended the call. For years, he had dreamed of becoming vice president. Now the position belonged to someone with no corporate experience, and he wasn't willing to accept it. As he drove away, a dangerous idea began to form in his mind. That evening, Chitty and Kaima sat on the balcony of their home. The city lights stretched endlessly below them. Kaima rested her head on his shoulder. Do you ever get tired? Every day. Then why do you keep going? Chitty thought for a moment. Because wealth means nothing if it doesn't help people. Kaima smiled. You really believe that? I do. She looked up at him. And what about us? Chitty wrapped his arm around her. You are the greatest investment I ever made. Kaima laughed. That's a terrible romantic line. I own companies, not poetry. She laughed harder. For the first time in days, everything felt peaceful. Neither of them knew that hidden enemies were already preparing their next move. And soon, Kaima would face the greatest test of her life. The next morning, Dream Chasing Group headquarters was unusually quiet. Employees stood in small groups, whispering among themselves. Everyone had heard the same story. The chairman had married the woman who loved him when he pretended to be a beggar. And that same woman had become the new vice president overnight. Some people admired her. Others envied her. A few simply refused to accept it. Inside his office, Mr. Okafor stood beside the window, staring down at the parking lot. Two executives sat opposite him. This cannot continue, one of them said quietly. People have worked here for 20 years, another added. Then suddenly someone with no experience becomes vice president. Mr. Okafor folded his arms. The chairman acts with emotion. Then what do we do? He turned around slowly. We wait for her to make a mistake. And if she doesn't? Mr. Okafor smiled coldly. Everyone makes mistakes. At the same time, Kaima sat alone in her office. The room was larger than her entire apartment. The desk was covered with documents she barely understood. She rubbed her forehead and sighed. A knock came from the door. Come in. Her assistant entered. Good morning, ma'am. Good morning. The board meeting starts in 20 minutes. Kaima forced a smile. Thank you. As soon as the assistant left, she buried her face in her hands. 20 minutes. 20 minutes before she would sit in front of some of the most powerful people in the country. A soft voice interrupted her thoughts. Scared, Kaima looked up. Chitty stood at the door, terrified. He laughed and sat across from her. You know, when I started my first business, I was more afraid than you are right now. You? Yes. You own half the country. I didn't always. Kaima shook her head. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. She pointed toward the boardroom. Those people think I don't belong here. Chitty leaned back. Do you think you belong here? She hesitated. I don't know. Chitty smiled. Good. Why do you keep saying that? Because people who know they don't know everything are willing to learn. Kaima sighed. And what if I fail? Then fail honestly. She looked at him in confusion. What does that mean? It means never betray your values to protect your pride. Before Kaima could answer, Chitty stood. The meeting starts in 15 minutes. You're leaving? Of course. You're not coming with me? He shook his head. This one is yours. The boardroom doors opened. 20 executives sat around the massive table. As Kaima walked in, the room fell silent. She took a deep breath and sat down. Mr. Okafor smiled politely. Good morning, Madam Vice President. Good morning. For a few minutes, everything went smoothly. They discussed profits. They discussed investments. They discussed future projects. Then Mr. Okafor cleared his throat. Madam Vice President, perhaps you can explain the details of the Lagos expansion project. Kaima froze. She had read the report late into the night, but she still didn't fully understand it. Everyone looked at her. She opened the file. We're planning to expand into 3 new districts. Mr. Okafor nodded. And what is the projected return on investment? Kaima looked down at the documents. The numbers blurred together. She couldn't find the answer. The silence became uncomfortable. One executive exchanged glances with another. Mr. Okafor smiled faintly. Perhaps you haven't had enough time to study the file. Kaima looked up. For a brief moment, Embarrassment washed over her. Then she remembered Chitty's words. Fail honestly. She closed the file. You're right. The room became quiet. I don't know the answer. Several executives looked surprised. Kaima continued. I've only been here for a few days. I won't pretend to understand things I haven't mastered yet. Mr. Okafor blinked. She looked around the room. But I intend to learn. If anyone here has experience I don't have, I hope you'll teach me instead of waiting for me to fail. Nobody spoke.
For the first time, the atmosphere changed.
An older woman sitting near the end of the table smiled. My name is Mrs. Ease. I've worked here for 18 years. Kaima nodded respectfully. Mrs. Ease continued. And I think honesty like that is rare. Another executive nodded. I agree. Mr. Okafor's smile disappeared. Kaima wasn't supposed to admit weakness.
She was supposed to panic.
She was supposed to embarrass herself. Instead, the room had started respecting her. Mrs. Ease opened another file. Let's review the numbers together. For the next hour, the meeting transformed into something unexpected. People stopped treating Kaima as an enemy. They started teaching her. And Kaima listened carefully. Meanwhile, Chitty watched everything from his office, through the meeting recordings. His assistant stood beside him. Chairman, should we intervene? Chitty shook his head.
No.
Mr. Okafor is clearly trying to undermine her. I know. Then why are you allowing it? Chitty smiled. Because trust means allowing people to fight their own battles. The assistant looked thoughtful. You knew she would survive?
Chitty shook his head. No.
You took a risk? I married her because of who she is, not because she never makes mistakes. The assistant smiled. She's stronger than people think. Chitty looked through the glass wall. Yes. That afternoon, Kaima decided to visit one of Dream Chasing Group's community projects. The company had built a small business center on the outskirts of the city. Dozens of struggling families had received support there. As Kaima walked through the center, people greeted her warmly. An elderly woman approached her. Madam, thank you. Kaima looked confused. For what? The woman pointed toward her small shop. Dream Chasing Group gave me a loan. Kaima smiled. I'm glad it helped. The woman shook her head.
No.
It changed everything. Nearby, children ran across the road, laughing. A young man walked up to her. I used to sleep on the street. Kaima stared at him. Really? Yes. And now? He pointed to a mechanic workshop. Now I own that. Kaima smiled. For the first time since becoming vice president, she understood why Chitty loved his work so much. This wasn't just business. It was hope. As she continued walking, she noticed a small girl sitting alone under a tree. The child couldn't have been older than 8. Kaima sat beside her. Why aren't you playing with the others? The girl looked down. My mother is sick. Kaima's expression softened. Where is she? The girl pointed toward a nearby building. Kaima entered the room and found a woman lying on a small bed. The woman tried to sit up. Madam Vice President. Please don't get up. The woman smiled weakly. I didn't expect someone like you to visit us. Kaima sat beside her. How long have you been sick? Almost 6 months. And the hospital? The woman looked away. We can't afford it. Kaima felt something tighten inside her chest. She immediately turned to her assistant. Arrange treatment. Yes, ma'am. The woman stared at her. You would really do that? Kaima smiled. Of course. Tears filled the woman's eyes. Thank you. As Kaima walked back to her car, her assistant looked at her. You approved that without checking the budget. Kaima smiled. Was it the wrong decision?
No.
Then we'll find the money. The assistant laughed softly. You're starting to sound like the chairman. Kaima looked out the window. Maybe that's because he taught me what matters. That evening, Kaima returned home exhausted. She found Chitty cooking in the kitchen. You cook?
He laughed.
Poor people cook. She rolled her eyes. You're never letting that joke die, are you? Never. She sat down. Today was difficult. What happened? She told him everything. The meeting, Mr. Okafor, her mistake, the community center, the sick woman. Chitty listened quietly. When she finished, he smiled. You did well. I failed in front of everyone. You told the truth. Kaima leaned against the chair. I thought being vice president meant having all the answers.
Chitty shook his head. No.
Then what does it mean? It means being responsible when nobody else wants to be. Kaima looked at him. Did people ever doubt you?
Chitty laughed.
Every day. And what did you do? I kept working. Kaima smiled. You make everything sound simple. It isn't simple. He placed food on the table. It's just worth it. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. Then Kaima suddenly remembered something. By the way, your executives are afraid of you. Chitty burst out laughing. Good. You're enjoying this too much. Absolutely. She shook her head. I married a strange man. Chitty sat beside her. And I married a stubborn woman. Kaima smiled. Good thing we found each other. Outside, the city lights flickered in the darkness. Inside the house, peace finally settled. But somewhere across the city, Mr. Okafor sat alone in his office, staring at a file. He opened a drawer and pulled out several documents. A slow smile spread across his face. If honesty won't destroy her, he whispered, something else will. He picked up his phone and made a call. Prepare everything. A voice answered. Are you sure? Yes. What about the chairman? Mr. Okafor looked out into the night. He won't see this coming. Far away, Chitty and Kaima laughed together over dinner, completely unaware that a new storm was already gathering. The following Monday, Dream Chasing Group headquarters was buzzing with activity. Employees hurried through the marble hallways carrying files and laptops. Meetings had already begun on nearly every floor. But hidden beneath the normal routine, something dangerous was happening. Inside his office, Mr. Okafor sat across from two men. The curtains were closed. The room was silent. Everything is ready? He asked. One of the men nodded. The contract files have been moved. And the authorization records? Modified. Mr. Okafor leaned back in his chair. Good. The younger man hesitated. Sir, are you sure about this? If the chairman discovers what we've done, he won't. And if he does? Mr. Okafor's expression hardened. Then we deny everything. The second man swallowed nervously. You're risking your entire career. Mr. Okafor stood and walked toward the window. My career ended the day he made that girl vice president. She's the chairman's wife. Exactly. He turned around. She has no experience, no qualifications, and yet everyone bows to her. Sir, maybe the chairman sees something in her. Mr. Okafor laughed bitterly. The chairman sees love. Companies are not built with love. He picked up a file from his desk. By tomorrow morning, everyone will question whether Kaima deserves that office. Meanwhile, Kaima sat in her office, reading reports. 3 weeks had passed since her wedding. Every day, she learned something new. Every day, she made mistakes. And every day she improved. Her assistant entered. Good morning, ma'am. Morning. The board meeting begins in 30 minutes. Kaima sighed. Another one? The assistant smiled. That's how companies work. Kaima laughed. Nobody warned me. As she gathered her documents, her phone rang. It was Chitty. Good morning, wife. She smiled immediately. Good morning. Nervous? Always. You'll survive. I hope so. You will. Kaima hesitated. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why don't you help me more? There was silence for a moment. Then Chitty answered softly. Because if I solve every problem for you, you'll never know how strong you are. Kaima shook her head. You're impossible. And yet you married me. She laughed. Unfortunately. See you tonight. See you. She ended the call and headed toward the boardroom. The meeting began normally. Executives discussed investments, company expansion, and international partnerships. Then suddenly, the finance director frowned. That's strange. Everyone looked at him. What happened? Mrs. Ease asked. The Lagos housing project funds are missing. The room froze. Kaima looked up. Missing? The director nodded. Nearly $50 million. What? He quickly checked the computer again. The transfer records show that the money was redirected 3 days ago. The room exploded with confusion. Redirected where? Who approved it? How is that possible? The director swallowed hard. The authorization code belongs to the vice president's office. Every eye turned toward Kaima. Her heart stopped. What? The director projected the documents onto the screen. At the bottom of the page was her digital authorization. Kaima stood up immediately. I never approved this. Mr. Okafor crossed his arms. Are you saying the documents are fake? Yes. The room became silent. Mrs. Ease looked worried. Madam Vice President, this is serious. Kaima stared at the screen. I've never seen this document before. Mr. Okafor slowly stood. With respect, the authorization came directly from your office. I didn't sign it. Then someone used your credentials. Kaima's mind raced. How was that possible? She protected her passwords. She never shared confidential information. This doesn't make sense. The finance director shook his head. $50 million doesn't simply disappear. For the first time since becoming vice president, Kaima felt the room turning against her. Whispers filled the air. People exchanged worried looks. Some were sympathetic. Others already believed she was guilty. Mr. Okafor sighed dramatically. Chairman Chitty trusted you with enormous responsibility. Kaima looked directly at him. What are you implying? I'm implying that responsibility comes with consequences. Mrs. Ease interrupted. Enough. We don't know what happened yet. Mr. Okafor sat back down. Of course. But the damage had already been done. An hour later, Kaima sat alone in her office. Her hands trembled. Her assistant entered carefully. Ma'am? Kaima looked up. Everyone thinks I stole company money. No, not everyone. Enough people. The assistant sat down. Do you know who did this?
Kaima shook her head. No.
Will you tell the chairman? Kaima stared out the window. I don't know. For the first time in weeks, doubt entered her heart. Maybe she truly didn't belong here. Maybe Mr. Okafor had been right all along. Maybe she was in over her head. Her phone vibrated. It was Chitty. She stared at the screen for several seconds before answering. Hello. His voice immediately changed. What's wrong? Nothing. Kaima. She closed her eyes. Something happened. 20 minutes later, Chitty entered her office. The moment he saw her face, he understood that the situation was serious. He sat beside her. Tell me everything. Kaima explained the missing money, the authorization documents, and the accusations. When she finished, Chitty remained silent. Aren't you angry? She asked.
No.
You don't think I did it? He looked at her as if the question itself was ridiculous. Never. But everyone else. I don't care what everyone else thinks. Kaima lowered her head. What if I really can't do this job? Chitty leaned forward. Look at me. She slowly raised her eyes. Do you know why I made you vice president? Because you love me? He smiled. That helps. Despite everything, Kaima laughed. Then his expression became serious. I chose you because you care about people. Because you tell the truth. Because you defend what's right even when it costs you something. That doesn't make me a good executive.
No.
But it makes you someone worth trusting. Kaima sighed. Someone framed me. Yes. You already know? I know you. He stood up. Find the truth. Just like that. Just like that. Aren't you going to investigate? Chitty walked toward the door. I could solve this in 1 hour. Kaima frowned. Then why won't you? He turned around. Because this battle belongs to you. And then he left. Across the building, Mr. Okafor smiled as he read the latest reports. Everything was going exactly as planned. People were talking. People were doubting. People were questioning Kaima's abilities. One of his allies entered the office. Sir, the board is nervous. Good. The chairman hasn't reacted. Mr. Okafor frowned. He hasn't said anything?
No.
Interesting. The younger man sat down. What if Kaima proves she's innocent?
Mr. Okafor laughed. How?
The evidence points directly to her office. Exactly. He leaned back in his chair. By the end of the week, everyone will see that she doesn't belong here. Suddenly, his phone rang. He answered. Hello. A frightened voice came from the other side. Sir, we have a problem. Mr. Okafor sat upright. What problem? Someone accessed the security archives. His face changed immediately. What? Somebody requested footage from 3 nights ago. Who? We don't know yet. For the first time that day, fear appeared in Mr. Okafor's eyes. Meanwhile, Kaima sat alone in the security department. 3 large screens played footage from different floors of the company. The head of security looked at her nervously. Madam Vice President, these are all the recordings from the night before the transfer. Kaima nodded. Thank you. Hour after hour, she watched employees entering and leaving offices. Nothing seemed unusual. Then suddenly she saw something. At 2:30 in the morning, someone entered the vice president's office. Kaima leaned forward. Pause. The screen froze. The person wore a cap and a mask. Can you zoom in? The security officer enlarged the image. The face remained hidden. But one detail caught Kaima's attention. The man wore a silver ring. A ring with the symbol of a lion.
Kaima stared at it.
She had seen that ring before.
But where?
She closed her eyes, searching her memory. Then suddenly she remembered. That morning. The boardroom. Mr. Okafor. He wore the exact same ring. Her heart began to race. Could it really be him? Or was someone trying to frame him too? She wasn't sure. But for the first time since the nightmare began, she had something. A clue. Far above the city, in his office, Chitty stood beside the window. His assistant approached him. Chairman, should we intervene now? Chitty smiled faintly.
No.
You're still waiting? Yes. What are you waiting for?
Chitty looked out at the skyline.
I'm waiting for Kaima to realize who she really is. Below them, the city lights flickered in the darkness. And somewhere inside Dream Chasing Group, a trap that had been carefully planned was beginning to fall apart. Kaima could barely sleep that night. The image from the security footage kept replaying in her mind. The masked man, the silver ring, the lion engraved on its surface. She sat up in bed and looked toward the balcony. Chitty was standing outside, staring at the city lights below. Quietly, she walked over to him. You're still awake? Chitty turned and smiled. And so are you. Kaima folded her arms. I can't stop thinking about it. The security footage? She nodded. I think I know who entered my office. Chitty studied her face. Who? Kaima hesitated. I don't know if I'm right.
Tell me.
Mr. Okafor. For a moment, Chitty said nothing. Why do you think that? I saw a silver ring with a lion symbol. And he wears one? Every day. Chitty looked back at the city. Interesting. Kaima frowned. Interesting? That's all you have to say. He laughed softly. What do you want me to say? I want you to tell me whether I'm wrong or right.
Chitty shook his head.
You already know what you think. Kaima sighed in frustration. You always answer questions with questions. That's because the answer means more when you discover it yourself. She leaned against the railing. I feel like everyone is waiting for me to fail. Everyone isn't. Enough people. Chitty gently took her hand. Kaima, people doubted me too. You built companies. And before that, I sold spare parts from a tiny shop. She looked at him. Were you scared? Every single day. Kaima smiled weakly. Then how did you survive? Chitty's expression softened. I stopped trying to prove people wrong and started trying to prove myself right. His words stayed in Kaima's mind long after they returned inside. The next morning, Dream Chasing Group was in chaos. News of the missing $50 million had spread throughout the company. Employees whispered in elevators. Managers gathered in hallways. Nobody knew what to believe. Inside his office, Mr. Okafor paced nervously. One of his associates stood beside him. Sir, security footage was requested last night. Mr. Okafor stopped walking. Do we know who requested it? No. His jaw tightened. What exactly did they access? The footage from the vice president's floor. Mr. Okafor's face darkened. Delete everything. We can't. Why not? The files have already been copied. For the first time since the plan began, fear gripped him. Find out who has those files. Yes, sir. As the man hurried out of the office, Mr. Okafor walked toward the window. For years, he had controlled everything around him. People respected him. People feared him. Now, for the first time in decades, he felt powerless. At 10 o'clock, an emergency board meeting was announced. Every executive was ordered to attend. The atmosphere inside the boardroom was tense. Kaima walked in carrying a folder. Everyone watched her. Mr. Okafor sat quietly at the end of the table. Mrs. Ease leaned toward Kaima. Are you okay? Kaima nodded. I think so. Before anyone could say anything else, the doors opened. Chitty entered. Immediately, the entire room stood. Good morning, Chairman. Please sit. He sat at the head of the table. His face revealed nothing. The finance director cleared his throat. Chairman, thank you for coming. Chitty nodded. Let's begin. The director projected the missing transaction onto the screen. As everyone knows, $50 million disappeared from the Lagos housing project account. He looked toward Kaima. The authorization came from the vice president's office. Chitty turned toward Kaima. Do you have anything to say? The room became silent. Kaima stood up slowly. Yes. She walked toward the screen. I did not authorize this transfer. Mr. Okafor folded his arms. With respect, Madam Vice President, we've already heard that. Kaima ignored him. Last night, I reviewed security footage from the office. Whispers spread around the room. Mr. Okafor's expression changed slightly. Kaima continued. At 2:30 in the morning, someone entered my office. The finance director frowned.
Who?
I don't know. Mr. Okafor smiled. So we're chasing ghosts now. Kaima opened her folder. I do know one thing. She placed a photograph on the table. The security image of the silver ring. Everyone leaned forward.
What is that? Someone asked.
A ring worn by the person who entered my office. The room fell silent. Kaima turned toward Mr. Okafor. And there is someone in this room who wears that exact ring. Every head slowly turned. Mr. Okafor stared at her. Are you accusing me?
Kaima hesitated.
I'm saying that your ring matches the one in the footage.
Mr. Okafor laughed.
This is ridiculous. He held up his hand. A silver ring? Thousands of people own silver rings. Several executives nodded. He looked around the room confidently. Is this the evidence we're relying on now? Kaima felt doubt creeping into her mind. Maybe she had made a mistake. Maybe the ring wasn't enough. Mr. Okafor stood. Chairman, with all due respect, this accusation damages my reputation. Chitty finally spoke. Sit down. The room instantly became quiet. Mr. Okafor slowly sat. Chitty folded his hands. Kaima, is that all? For a moment, she couldn't answer. Then suddenly, the security director rushed into the room. Chairman, forgive the interruption. Chitty looked up. What happened? The man held a tablet in his shaking hands. We found something else. The screen connected to the projector. New footage appeared. It showed the parking garage. The masked man removed his cap for a few seconds. The room gasped. It was one of Mr. Okafor's closest assistants. Mr. Okafor jumped to his feet. What nonsense is this? The assistant, who was sitting near the back, turned pale. I can explain. Then explain. The young man looked around desperately. I didn't do anything. The security director stepped forward. Your access card opened the vice president's office. The assistant's face lost all color. I was forced. Mr. Okafor froze. What are you saying? The young man pointed with trembling hands. He told me to do it. The entire room exploded into chaos. Impossible. Are you serious? What is happening? Mr. Okafor slammed his hand on the table. He's lying. The assistant burst into tears. You promised nobody would find out. Silence filled the room. Mr. Okafor stared at him in disbelief. You fool. The words escaped before he could stop them. Everyone heard them. The assistant looked up. You said chairman would blame Kaima. You said nobody would investigate. The room went silent again. Mrs. Ease slowly stood. Mr. Okafor, tell me this isn't true. But his silence was answer enough. Chitty rose from his seat. The entire room became still. He walked slowly toward Mr. Okafor. For years, everyone had feared Chitty's anger. Yet his voice remained calm. You stole from your own company. Mr. Okafor shook his head. I built this company.
No.
Chitty's eyes hardened. You worked for this company. Mr. Okafor lowered his head. I deserve that position. Did you deserve it enough to destroy innocent people? He said nothing. Chitty continued. You framed my wife. The words echoed through the room. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. For the first time, Mr. Okafor truly understood the consequences of his actions. I gave this company 20 years. Chitty nodded. And in 1 month, you destroyed your legacy. The old man closed his eyes. I was angry. You were proud. I watched someone with no experience take everything I wanted. Chitty looked toward Kaima. She didn't take anything from you. Mr. Okafor laughed bitterly. Of course she did. Kaima finally spoke.
No.
Everyone turned toward her. I never wanted your position. Mr. Okafor stared at her. I didn't ask to become vice president. I was afraid. I still am. For the first time, his anger weakened. Kaima continued softly. You could have taught me. The room fell silent. You could have helped me become better. Mr. Okafor looked away. Instead of hatred, all he felt was regret. Chitty turned toward security. Escort him out. 2 guards stepped forward. Mr. Okafor didn't resist. As he reached the door, he stopped. Without turning around, he asked quietly, Chairman, after everything, what happens to me now? Chitty looked at him. That depends on whether you finally decide to become the man you pretended to be. The guards led him away.
The door closed.
Silence filled the room. Then Chitty looked toward Kaima, vice president. Kaima straightened. You were right to fight. She smiled faintly. I almost gave up, but you didn't. Mrs. E stood and began clapping. One by one, the others joined her. The room filled with applause. For the first time since entering Dream Chasing Group, Kaima felt that she truly belonged. But as she looked at Chitty across the room, she realized something important. This battle had never been about money. It had never been about power. It had been about trust. And trust, once earned, was worth more than any fortune.